People are used to use the word addiction for things to which we are not structurally addictive. For example, we say that we are addicted to a certain type of coffee. In the case of gambling, it meets many of the formal behavioral definitions of addiction. People's lives have been severely affected and even destroyed by such activities. However, a third of gambling addicts and video game addicts are able to break their addiction within a given year without seeking outside help. If we take into account the biological level, there is an activation and alteration of the medial forebrain pleasure circuit, which is considered to be the heart of addiction. It causes the dopamine release in BTA target regions. In the book Born to Lose by Bill Lee, there's a talk about the story of a man who became a compulsive gambler because of his circumstances. His father liked playing and he used to go with him. All his entire life have changed. Nowadays, even though he is an advocate of Gamblers Anonymous and his entire life have also changed, in the past he has lost everything he had, his job and his family. We couldn't overgeneralize this addiction, just like all the others. Most people can gamble or play video games occasionally without this behavior becoming compulsive and ruining their lives. So, what factors in the biology and experience of some individuals will turn pleasure into pathology? A1 allele of the D2 dopamine receptor that reduces dopamine signaling is more likely to be with several substances, food, drugs, alcohol. There are some other variants that reduce dopamine signaling that are also associated with gambling addiction. It's common that the person who is addicted with drugs would also be with another addictions, so they are reflecting a disorder of the dopamine-using pleasure circuit. Gambling nowadays is really accessible, so the prevalence of gambling addiction increases, for example with online gambling. Also, you can be addicted to gambling but manage to thrill your professional life, as many gambling addicts are among the most successful figures in the business world, a profile that contributes to a self-control image and makes them reluctant to seek for help. Despite their similarities, gambling is usually less destructive than addiction to drugs, but it's more destructive in one aspect: theft. Most gambling addicts go deeply into debt, and many commit crimes to get some money. This may be one reason why the attempted suicide rate from gambling addiction is so high, about 20% for Gamblers Anonymous members.
There is one model that tries to explain how gambling addiction starts by early reward. If you win the first few times you play, it positively reinforces the gambling behavior. However, this model is not an accurate one, since not everyone wins the first time they play. This is why a new model emerged, stating that our brains are hardwired to find certain kinds of uncertainty pleasurable. Wolfram Schultz and his coworkers conducted several experiments in which monkeys were trained to watch a computer screen for green-red lights and were given a drop of sweet sugar syrup. Electrodes were also inserted into the monkey's brain to record the activity of individual neurons in the BTA. When a green appeared on the screen, it indicated that syrup drop would always be delivered. When they were presented a red light, it indicated that no reward would be given. In the first trial, no light goes on. The delivery of a syrup drop is rapidly followed by a brief burst of dopamine neurons firing in the monkey's brain, so it perceives the syrup drop as rewarding. Eventually, the monkey learns that the green light is a predictor of the rewarding, and the dopamine neuron gradually stops responding to the reward itself and instead displays a similar burst of activity at the side of the green light. In a later experiment, they added a visual cue, a blue light. It signaled that 2 seconds after it flashed, a reward would be delivered randomly on 50% of the trials. The monkeys showed a brief burst of activity when the blue light came on, but then there was a gradual increase in the level of dopamine neuron firing, such that high rates of firing were achieved by the time the blue light shut off. During the anticipation phase, the increase of dopamine neuron firing produced an increase in activation of the pleasure circuit in the BTA regions. However, This is not fully applicable to humans for several reasons, one of them being that money is not a natural reward. Hans Brader and his coworkers adapted this experiment with humans and money to test it. People were presented three wheels with different outcomes: bad, intermediate, and good. The main finding was that, as with Salt's monkeys, BTA target regions were activated during both the anticipation phase and the outcome phase, and the anticipation phase responses were greater when the outcomes were positive. This shows that even anticipation and experience of an abstract reward, like money, can activate the human pleasure circuit. It has been observed that near misses promote continued gambling. Near miss is when gamblers almost win a hand, spin, or lottery ticket and take it as a sign that they should keep playing. Manufacturers of video slot machines are well aware of this effect, and some have programmed their devices to increase the rate of near misses above random levels. Together with near misses, direct involvement seems to affect the prevalence of gambling behaviors. If the person is directly involved, such as in rolling dice, they will tend to bet more and continue gambling longer. Luke Clark and his colleagues conducted an experiment to demonstrate the activation of the pleasure circuit by near misses and how personal involvement can strengthen this activation. The subjects were shown two reels, one fixed and one that spun. The trials consisted on the spinning reel trying to match the fixed one. In some of them, the subjects controlled the fixed reel, and in others, the computer did so. They were asked questions about their expectations to win before each trial. After each trial, they were asked how pleasurable the results were and how much they were willing to continue playing the game. On the one hand, looking at the subjects' responses, they found that when the subjects had personal control of the fixed reel, they estimated more chances to win and they were more willing to continue playing. They also wanted to continue playing more if they got near misses while controlling the reel. Finally, they reported higher pleasure when they had won and they were controlling the reel. On the other hand, looking at the brain scanners, they found out that near misses activate the same BTA target pleasure circuits as wins. They also observed that regions such as the rostral anterior cingulate cortex were activated when the person controlled the reel. Their conclusion was that near misses activate win-related regions in a pleasurable way, and this pleasure is increased when the person is an involving role in the game. This study explains the ability of near misses to promote continued gambling. We already know that winning money can activate the human dopamine-using pleasure circuit. We also know that blunted dopamine function influences drug addicts and food addicts, suggesting that their addictions result from an attempt to achieve a set point of pleasure that non-addicts can reach more easily. Some studies show that gambling addiction could work in this way too. They concluded that genetic variants that suppress dopamine signaling, particularly in the medial forebrain, were associated with higher rates of gambling addiction. Money is not considered to activate the pleasure circuit arbitrarily, as it might represent the possibility of getting intrinsic rewards. So the question is, can the human pleasure circuit be activated by stimuli that are entirely arbitrary? An experiment involving video games showed that apart from those areas related to visual, motor, and sensory activity, key regions of the medial forebrain pleasure circuit were also activated. The intriguing finding of this study is that video game play, which is completely unnatural and does not produce any intrinsic reward, activated the pleasure circuit to some degree in all subjects. These findings on how the pleasure system can be activated by arbitrary stimuli lead to evolutionary and developmental questions. When did the ability to feel pleasure from arbitrary rewards develop? And are these rewards really entirely arbitrary, or is there some common feature that groups them? Also, while we were doing this project, we started wondering, can we develop an addiction to other person?